How motivated can you make yourself? Can you prep yourself up if you want to achieve certain things? And how consistent can you be, especially when we use the word productivity? Well, today I'm going to talk with you about the 3 M's. And in case you are wondering, let me show you something. It's been some hard work, but here it is. Of course, the printer did a number on me. Here we go. That's the simple version. And then there's a version which looks just a little bit more. And there it is. Completely with 3 pages. Anyway, as you might know, I need to go to Instagram for a sec to hit the live button. So here we go. And I'm back again. So Friday Night Live with Lady Lexi. We are there again. And yes, we are way later than normal. Well, the good thing is I am consistent, so I might not start at the time that I want to, but you can always count on me to be there. So I'm here. So yeah, I would say let's go and let's move forward. So I wrote a few things down when it comes to this part, but maybe I should start with a different example. So moving ahead and Milestones, motivation, and mindset, of course, also has to do with going live. It's Friday Night Live with me, right? And it's about moving ahead one step at a time. Now, I've been thinking a lot about what I was going to write when it came to this PDF. So I was like, okay, when I have the productivity challenge, which is going to be the last weekend of the month, then I want a handout. And I love it when I have questions. So questions all over. But in order to have questions, it's also nice to actually have a little explanation, which is on there. And I was like, okay, I know it has to do with mindset, motivation, and milestones. But how am I going to put those questions out there? How am I going to describe this? And of course, I always describe more than I want to, but I try to remain it, to do it on just one sheet. And I succeeded. So getting that done was actually quite a challenge for me. But I was like, okay, it's important. And going back to the example that I suddenly wanted to give, moving ahead today, going to do Friday Night Live. Why? Because first of all, I love doing it. I love doing these lives. I love to hear the feedback afterwards. So that's cool. And even if there's only one person listening to me and they get something out of it, I know it's already worthwhile. But apart from that, I love doing these lives. It's sort of my thing. And also, I have decided a while ago to be consistent. And for those who do not know, today is day 78 since December 1st that I have been posting on Instagram every day. Sometimes I do a video. Sometimes I actually do a video where I am visible. Sometimes it's just a few cards, but usually when I do a few cards, I do it in a video. And I'm working towards, and this is all sales and marketing, of course, I'm working towards a video where I can actually talk about these things and explain to the people what these things actually entail and why they should be part of the productivity challenge. And maybe I'm going to call it the 3M challenge. Sounds a little bit nicer than the whole productivity challenge. So that's something to remember, the 3M challenge. So my mindset is fixed. Every Friday I go live. No matter what, I'm gonna go live. So here I am. But here's the thing. Some things happened today. And it started out with that a few things sort of delayed with my appointment in a different city. I also had a lot of fun. I was there with a coaching client. And when I returned, I first was going to play drums, which is what I did. I did play drums. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to take a shower. And then all of a sudden, that's my pitfall. But it's also one of the reasons that for sort of feels like a reward. There were people out there in LA and they had Pokemons that we do not have over here or outside of LA. And some of you may know I'm a member of this Pokemon group since December 1st. It's an amazing group. I've never felt more at home than at this group, in this group. And it was kind of fun, but I also had to explain something. So the good news for me is I used to be moderator. I am no longer. So that frees me of all obligations. And the reason, and I do agree with that, is I don't know that much about Pokemon. So for those out there who are like, oh my God, she's talking about Pokemon again, hold your horses. It'll be okay. It's going to be about more than just Pokemon. But anyway, special things, then I noticed there were a lot of new people out there, that there was one that could use a little bit of help. And so we had a phone call. I also helped make lists. It was pretty quickly assigned to me, even though I'm not a moderator anymore. People know how to find me and where to find me. And by that time, it was all of a sudden, oh my God, I was going to go live and I completely forgot. So the smart thing was that prior to playing drums, I already did grocery shopping. Now, that's not the hardest thing to do because close to where I work, but also close to where I live, there are all these malls. So I just walk over to the shopping mall and I get my stuff. The not so good thing is it doesn't always come easy, as some of you may know. Walking is still a challenge for me, even nowadays. It can hurt a little bit. It can hurt more than I would like to, especially going uphill, and I had to go up the bridge and down the bridge today. But then again, I can do it and I can carry a backpack. So that's one major step forward. Well, maybe it's like 10 steps forward. So that's good. Okay, so my milestone, of course, has to do with being able to say that I'm doing these Friday nights after one another. And during the Friday night, I reflect back on what I posted this week on Instagram. But it's also about telling you, be aware that in a short amount of time, there will be a challenge coming up. So if correct, it's Friday the 16th, well, depending on where you are in the world. And that means the 23rd. Yeah, we only have 29 days. So 23, 24, and 25, the 25th of February. That's when I'll be having my live, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So basically, next week will be my 3M challenge. Sounds so much better than productivity. Do you remember the 3Ms? Motivation, milestones, and mindset. So everything to move ahead. So it didn't make sense not to go live. I mean, I've set my mind to it. I'm going to do it. It's literally a fixed mindset. When I talk about mindset, there are little things which are more more specific for me, more clear to me than mindset. This is the one thing that I, again, love to do. Could I have said I'm not going to do it because I'm late? Sure, I could have. And like I said at the beginning, I might be late, but I am consistent. I will do it. A lot of things have to happen. Well, if I won't be able to do it. So one thing, one reason, one specific reason which could happen, it has happened before, is that I lose my voice. It won't be the first time, it won't be the last time, but because I do every now and then lose my voice, I've learned not to postpone. So let's do what can be done. So in the last couple of weeks, or maybe last week or the week before, I don't know, we've talked about working ahead of time. And I guess that by creating this handout, that's what I was doing. I was working ahead of time. Having said that, at the same time, this baby right here was something I had been working on, but unfortunately, it took me way longer than I wanted. So I don't have to post every week on LinkedIn or on my blog just yet. I don't know if you remember it, but I said one step at a time. So that means for me, posting every day on Instagram, making sure there are posts out there on YouTube. Well, at least I go live once a week. So that's going to be on YouTube. But if I have longer videos, of course, it's nice to actually post them out there on YouTube and do it in such a way that at the end of the video, people actually know where to go to. And that also means planning a little bit. Well, not a little bit, a lot. Because as long as those, what we call end cards, are not there, then they won't be going live. So there needs to be some planning to it, because otherwise I'll have a stack of 30 videos and nothing happening. So the good thing is I go live at least once a week. So those two things are set. And of course, I do my group coaching live. I give live training. And then afterwards, we talk with one another about what was discussed. So those three things are fixed. And there's nothing happening what's getting in the way of it. Now, the group coaching is almost a year now that I've been going live every Tuesday. The exception was during Christmas. So that's a good exception, I would think. And well, I told you that since December 1st, I started posting every day on Instagram. And then, of course, this is the third or the fourth going live, Friday Night Live. So, and it's going to be next week is going to be the second challenge, which is linked to Friday Night Live. So that's actually kind of cool. So that would make it at least 4 weeks. So milestone, I'm going to call that a milestone. Now, getting back to doing it today, well, by now you know why I'm doing it today. But there's a lot to be said when it comes to motivation, mindsets, and milestones. So one of the things that I ran into this week was productivity. I've said it before, and I think I said it the first day that I started talking about productivity. Productivity and we are not friends, because that means planning. And planning means knowing when you do what. And it also implies being on time. Yeah, that part. So I'm not so good at it. I also don't know when fatigue hits me. And when fatigue is really out of control, then I need to give into it. That's the way it is. Otherwise, I'm a threat to myself and my direct environment. My coordination is off. So, you know, that's not something that's wished upon myself and others. Usually I create a mess around me. Not so much in traffic as in everything that can break, spill, whatever. That's basically what's happening. So not for me when I'm really tired. Also, I just don't like being obligated to do things. So I started thinking about the whole productivity thing, and I was like, yeah, maybe it doesn't have a nice ring to it for me, but when I do it and I do live up to it, that feels good, because then we're talking about consistency and I can be proud of myself, and we have two shoulders. So, so that's a good thing. And I told you, I don't know, a few sessions ago, a few lives ago, I was like, yeah, can I do that every day? Posting something. In December, it was easy because it had to do with emotions, it had to do with Christmas. People might not be happy. So some people might not be happy because they're alone, and other people might be like, yeah, it's the end of the year and I was supposed to do this, that, and the other, and I didn't do it. So I talked about finishing the year strong, but also starting with a boost, starting with a bang. So that was easy. For me, that was easy. And then January was about courage. So December in its totality was actually about energy, mustering up the energy even when dealing with dark times. And courage, which was in January, I love talking about courage. And when we talk about everything I'm doing right now, that takes courage. So on one hand, it's exciting. It's like, oh, I love doing this. And on the other hand, it does take courage. So at some point this week, since we are talking about what happened this week, someone said about a video, yeah, well, it was more about the same thing. So initially, it was said it's about Pokemon, and the mere fact that it said productivity twice was neglected. And then later on, it was said, yeah, but. So what I got out of it was, okay, I need to make sure that I look at the topic from every possible angle and make it as fun as I possibly can. Well, that's easier said than done. And of course, everything was rattling up here. Like, how am I going to make this happen? And sometimes I would be literally, like, yeah, I need to come up with something, need to come up with something, need to come up with something. And then all of a sudden it hit me and I would have something. So that's nice. There were also days that I post twice and that I started by posting something else. So I've posted about Crystal Can See You Now, for instance. So Crystal is a drag artist. She dresses up as a woman and she gets a lot of flack, lots of heat. Maybe I'm saying this the wrong way, but I think the correct term is that she's getting a lot of heat and a lot of flack. Mainly because she dresses up as a woman, and oh my God, transgender people could be scary, and also drag queens could be scary. Well, I don't know. I don't believe that's true, because let's face it, people who are scary don't do things openly unless they totally don't have a conscience, and then that's how they will express themselves, so you will recognize it. But no, when people are openly doing something, then you know what you can expect from them. So I mean, there's no dishonesty in there, and there's no threat in there, apart maybe from morality for some. And this might be a bit, not everyone agrees with me, but a lot of times morality goes hand in hand with hypocrisy. And, well, especially the ones who think that everything will be all right when you are sitting front row in church and you're giving a lot of money and you are saying your prayers while at the same time you are harassing people, you're abusing people, maybe even worse. Well, that's what you exploit people. Well, then you get my idea. You can't do one and do the other and then think it's all good. That's not the way it works, at least not in my book. So, getting back to, oh my God, that brain fog, every time it gets to me. Then I go something and I go somewhere and I'm like, okay, where was I again? And I absolutely have no clue. But I do know that I made a comparison which had to do with mindset and honesty. Oh yeah, I was talking about Crystal. Here we go again. So Crystal took it upon herself to take someone to court who, and that's the question, apparently, so I don't know if it's true, but apparently this person does it just to attract attention. And that's what he's getting paid for. Well, I don't know if that's true, but if that's true, that's really sad. And why is it sad? I mean, if someone wants to make money, sure, but don't do it at the expense of others, and especially not such a fragile group as when it comes to transgenders, or in this case, drag queens. And drag queens is one thing. I mean, you choose to actually go out that way. Although I believe there's this deep desire to do it. And if you cannot act on it, that it will hurt you in the long run. But people who are transgender, of course, that's a whole way of living, a whole way of being. And you are seen as one and put in the other category. I was a little too enthusiastic talking about this. Anyway, those people run into a lot of difficulties. Which dressing room do you go to? I ate a little something just before the live, and now it tickles in my throat. I didn't expect that, of course, otherwise I wouldn't have done it. So growing up, deciding when are they going to take hormones? Are they going to take hormones? And then we're not even going to talk about surgery. There are a lot of things involved. But a number of decisions have to be made prior to puberty, especially when you feel like you're female and you're in a male body. So if someone takes advantage of this group, this minority, by ridiculing them just for money and for number of people watching it, well, that in my book, that's a no-go. It's no. So I posted something about Crystal. It was actually kind of fun to do it. So Crystal had made this video and I took out some things that really resonated with me. And then I recorded my own video so I could use my voice as a voiceover and then, use all the other stuff. And actually that inspired me to do another video quite like it later on. But to get back to this one, I was like, okay, how much of this has to do with productivity? I didn't realize that I could use it for other stuff at the moment, which I have done. So it could have been listed as such. But that was not what I was experiencing at that moment. And I was like, yeah, sure, I post about Crystal, but I still need to post about productivity because consistency. Well, so I did. It was a little bit hard to come up with something, but I did. And then there were a ton of other things. So one of the things is when I made this thing here, or maybe I shall say when I made, let's see, this thing is the result of that one. So there you go. And people said, yeah, there is a lot of text in there, and we like pictures, because not long ago I made this thing with pictures, which looks like, it's all in here, but I don't always have it with me. Well, I do have it with me, but here, there you go. This thing, transform your thinking. So people were looking at this and they were like, I understand this, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And, hands on heart, like here, people understood what I was talking about. Okay, cool. And then they said, well, we want you to create another such a thing that we can read just as easily. And I was like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? So there I was sitting at a friend, and there I was scribbling this down. And I was like, she has a point. She absolutely has a point. And we have a guest on here, and I'm going to introduce her in a little while. Do you remember that I talked about Pokemon and that we have a lovely person in LA who's helping us host, which is part of the reason why I'm late? Well, that's her. So I'm going to let her introduce herself in a little bit. But before I do, let me just finish what I was talking about. So I got to think about this. How can I make this a little bit better? So talking about motivation and mindset and milestones and moving ahead made sense, because if I would make that sheet, then, that would be major progress. Then I would be able to actually do those things more easily. So the mindset was like, okay, I know what my reward is going to be, but when it came to motivation, oh my God, I had to look for all those things. But in the end, I made it, and people actually can pretty easily see what it's all about. It is about a topic called shiny objects. Are we going to be distracted by it, or does it help us move forward? And yes, Pokemon is also part of a shiny object. So let's introduce here stage Rayshana.
Hi.
So,
yeah, my name is Rayshana. Go on. Sorry. I don't know.
So I met Rayshana through the Pokemon group, the one that started on December 1st. And I've told others this, but for the first time, I felt like coming home in a group. If I ask something, then I actually get an answer.
Right. So exactly.
Amazing. So I was like, oh, yes, and every now and then I run into some things, because I can be pretty stubborn and I can be very structured. I'm very chaotic, but it's, like being late today. But on the other hand, I can be very structured. You might have seen it that I sometimes, every now and then, list certain things again and again and again.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I know. I feel super at home in that group as well. I mean, yeah, it's a great group of people.
Yeah.
So far.
Yes. So what do you like most about the group?
Definitely that I can answer. I mean, I can get questions answered and ask questions. That's a really awesome thing. And, I'm starting to remember everybody's names, like I'll go on there and I'll see a couple people that I know and I'm like, oh my gosh, I know that person. And that's what I really like, the familiarity of everybody in there. It's such a wonderful group of people.
I totally agree. So there are a lot of new people coming in, like every day almost. So then I have to get used to the new names. But it's true, especially the ones who get out there every day. Yeah, I do recognize them, and I think I'm becoming known for the one who, well, depends on where you are, of course, in the US. So where you are, it's around 9 in the evening. So when
Yeah.
basically the Pokestops die down. For others, it's at midnight. Somewhere between 9 and midnight, then I get Pokestops and I get raids.
Right.
People know
Which is
this.
great. I was actually just talking to Michael about how we should get some people from Japan so that we have always constantly raids going on, because then it would be like perfect when our raids are going on, theirs aren't, and when ours are going on, or when theirs are going on, ours aren't. So I was like, oh, we should totally get some people from Japan. But we have you from where you're from,
I'm
Netherlands.
from the Netherlands. I'm from Holland. Of course, we also have people from Australia. You
Oh yeah, I
are,
saw a couple of those people too.
yeah, exactly. We do have at least one from Japan. I know about someone else, but I don't know how to get in touch with her. That's the thing when you go um, on Facebook groups, you don't always see the person or their real
Right.
name, so you can't reach out. So I don't know how Michael does it, but he does it. So that's good.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I was talking about being distracted, but also being rewarded. I'm talking about this thing today here. So it's about moving ahead one step at a time. So on one hand, we have mindsets. On the other hand, we have motivation. And on this side, we have milestones.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Yeah.
It
So
actually
I like,
reminds me a lot of the 12 steps of, like Alcoholics Anonymous and stuff, and I think that's a really great I know a lot about that just because of my family and everything. So and their one of their biggest mottos is, take it one day at a time.
I so agree. And I talk to a lot of people about taking one step at a time, because a lot of people think they need to do everything at once and they need to be perfect at once and they need to have it fixed at once. But that's not realistic, and it can
No.
actually bring you down when you are not able to hang on to climbing upwards.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I mean,
Yeah,
it's it is important too to understand. I think a lot of people nowadays are, especially people in my age group, are extremely, how do I say this? Like, we don't have the ability to compartmentalize certain things, right? So when one thing happens, everything is happening, and you can't really go throughout your life just taking everything in all at once, because it's hard to make your life in separate sections, and but by doing that, you actually get the ability to take those things one at a time. And I think, that's one of the skills that I've learned in my life, that I think is one of the most important skills to learn when you're, young, just starting your life out and doing all this, especially, just in general. I think for everyone, it's a great you know mindset, for sure.
as long as you are aware of that you're compartmentalizing.
Right. Yeah.
Not
No.
everyone is. So
Yeah.
um, I gave this example, and a lot of people might shoot me down because I did, or they may not. I said one of the things that some people don't realize is they're being hypocritic by going to church on Sunday, sitting front row, paying a lot of money, saying their prayers, and then the moment that they step out of church, they hit their kids, they abuse their partner, they make fun of people, and
Oh yeah.
those things they don't rhyme very well with me, but they can say because I do it, and so in their mind they're doing the right thing, and
Yeah.
that's also compartmentalizing, you know.
Yes.
so so yeah,
Yeah,
that's
absolutely. Compartmentalizing can definitely be a good thing, and it can be a bad thing. It depends. I think it depends on how you take that and use it for yourself in a good way. If you can, do it.
yeah, yeah, I agree, and I like how you put it in a positive frame of mind. I think that that's good. So what I've noticed with people who are in their 20s is well, there's a lot of overwhelm. There's so much going
Oh
on, and you
yeah.
have to do so many things at the time. And I remember that at some point, someone, um, I don't know if it was a friend or a family member, I don't know anymore, but the person said, "Oh, when people cut themselves, they do it to get attention." And I said, "No, that's so wrong. That's not why they do it." I said, "They do it to numb the pain." The bas-
100%.
yeah, it's basically about wanting to shut off the brain, you know?
Exactly. I mean, what, yeah, I mean, I can literally speak all about that because I went through the same thing when I was, 12, 13, 14. I mean, I went through the exact same thing. And it was common because I think in my friend group, a lot of the people, in my friend group, we kind of had this clique, right? Like there was a lot of people in my group and we were all, I guess you would say, quote unquote, emos, right? And all of the other kids and even the kids' parents were looking at us expecting us to be the ones who cut ourselves, right? And then like when one of us did, it was just like, oh, they're asking for attention, or they want people to notice and all this stuff. And it was never actually like that. I mean, it's when you do something like that, it's very personal, and you don't want people to know.
No,
100%.
because when people do it, where do they do it? They do it in places that's not visible. It's like
Mm-hmm.
under the sleeve, it's, up
On the
all the way
thigh,
up at
yep.
the thigh. Yeah. So if anyone would want to attract attention by cutting themselves, they would do it where you can see it.
Obviously.
Yeah. So, and that's a way to actually shut the people down who say it's attention seeking. Now, the one thing that I didn't realize, and someone told this to me not too long ago, was when you actually cut, there's a risk because you start to cut deeper and deeper and deeper. So when I was young, and I didn't realize this when it comes to automutism, because that's what we're talking about, um, I used to scratch myself with my nails. And
Mm.
at some point, once someone said, "You're drawing these white lines," and
Yeah. Oh,
so
yeah. Like the when you scratch, right?
yeah, exactly. Or when I was really angry with myself because I didn't couldn't do the skills on the piano, then I would slam with my fist, you big wooden thing, right? Or
Yeah.
I would just bite on it. Um, but that, of course, that didn't leave any marks. But when you're cutting, of course, and you don't see it, what's happening, then at some point it can become very bloody, and you need to go to the hospital, and
Oh,
that's
yes.
the one thing you don't want,
Yeah,
actually.
exactly. Right. Yeah, that's the literal worst fear of anyone who's ever done that, is having to go to the hospital or having somebody find out, or like I remember too as well, like a lot of the friends that I knew, nobody knew that I did it. None of my friends did, but there were a couple of my friends that had come to me to tell me that they did it, right? And they were really worried all the time that, their parents were gonna, because they, a lot of kids who do it, they actually have kits where like, I don't know how to describe this, but they have like a kit where they take all the things that they use to, cut themselves, and they put it in a small little group of things and they hide it.
Yeah,
And I remember my friends would always come and say, I think my mom knows because she found a razor blade in the trash with no razor blades in it and stuff like that. And it was, and it was always this feeling of like, oh my gosh, scared. I don't want that to happen. But yeah, it's really common for people to think the opposite of that.
yeah. Because if people were to find out, of course, then the downside would be, hey, I need to talk to someone, a psychiatrist, but is that person going to understand me? Or what if they want to medicate me? So I don't know. What were the people in your direct environment scared about?
Well, I can speak from my own experience. I think the most important thing, there was multiple facets, I think, but the most important ones were definitely that if somebody found out, they'd automatically not believe me, right? They would think I'm just trying to do it for attention, or that I don't know, that they're thinking that I'm going through a phase and then it's not serious, right? But then there's another one where if somebody finds out, then they automatically label you as crazy, or like you need help. And when I was younger, speaking from experience here, I hated every time somebody tried to offer help or say, well, not because in my environment it was different. It wasn't like, hey, I really want to help you, I want to make you feel better. It was, I want you to stop doing this right now, and I'm mad at you for it, and all this, so that was another thing. Like, I've never wanted people to come to me and say, you're in trouble for doing this. It was just this big veil of shame all around it, all over the whole thing. It was just all shame. And then I think another one too was, it was really like, I'm just saying, I don't think this is like this for everybody, but in my experience, my mom used to do a lot of like blaming and kind of like, how do I laughing, like kind of making fun, almost like, you think your life is so bad, oh, but it's not, you're a kid, blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff. And so that was just the main things, like all of those just kind of come together and form one big, like, I don't want to tell anybody, kind of thing.
Yeah, you were not taken seriously, and that's the
Not
one
taken
thing.
seriously. Yes, yes,
Yes.
yes.
So I talk about teaching people to speak up, speak out, share their story, be seen, heard, understood, valued. And I don't have to tell you why,
Yes.
And of course, especially when people start to shame you or to make fun of you, just like you explained, this doesn't happen overnight. You do it because there is a trauma of some sort, maybe even
Right.
multiple traumas, maybe something you're confronted with daily. Maybe you see abuse around you. I mean, you were talking about alcoholism, and alcoholism, when people are, there are people and they can be funny, and there are people and they can be immensely mean.
Oh yeah.
And of course, it's shameful to see someone close to you swerving in the neighborhood, maybe getting in the car, getting into accidents, not knowing what they say, not remembering things. So there's a lot related to it. So even just from the aspect of shame, you could be bullied as a kid, and we'll try to explain why. But also the other side, which is maybe even worse, when partners, especially when parents start to attack one another or hurt one another, belittle one another, tell them this is what you need to do, and you as a kid and also the other partner starts to move around the other one, making themselves scarce when the other one is drunk, and let's be quiet, let's work around that's,
Mm-hmm.
oh my god, that creates a mindset that influences you for the rest of your life if you're if you're not so lucky, because then you think, oh, I need to change, it must be me, oh, I made them upset.
I
No,
can
they chose
literally,
you.
oh my gosh, everything you're saying right now is so true. I mean, literally, like, exactly right. Because, I mean, yeah, that was exactly how it was for me. It was, I mean, I neither one of my parents were ever really like, my dad was a wonderful dad. He was a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful dad. He just made bad decisions. But my
Mm-hmm.
mom, on the other hand, was not. I don't think she was supposed to. I don't think she was in the right mindset for having children ever. Like, I know that sounds terrible, but I mean, now that I'm grown and now that I'm out of that situation, I can kind of think about it from a different point of view. But when I was in that situation, it was exactly like you're saying. It was like, what, I am just the worst, and everything is me, and I've done it. All of this I've created myself, and it's all my fault, and all this stuff, you know. And it was always like that. I mean, because when I lived with my mom, it was my mom and her boyfriend, and they still have, but they had the most toxic relationship you could imagine. I mean, physical, emotional, verbal, all of that, everything just all combined into one. It was like horrible, absolutely horrible. And you know, and I think when I first came to live with her, it was, I was going through a lot. My dad had just left me, literally, like no goodbye, no nothing, said, I'll come back in an hour, and never came back, right? So then I'm stuck here at this person. I don't even know my mom that well, and I'm stuck here, and I'm like, okay, when's my dad coming back? But he never came back. And her boyfriend had the idea that I was only going to be there for like a month, maybe, right? So he started out that whole relationship with a bad image of me, like I was his big problem because, he didn't ask for me to come live there. And that turned into my mom and her boyfriend being together, right? And kind of both zoning in on me, taking their frustrations out on me. And then when my mom and her boyfriend would take their frustrations out on each other, she'd come to me and do the same thing, but with me, right? So it was always this constant, like, who is she gonna whose side is she on today? Like, it was like this constant veil. Like, she would come to me and be like, oh, we're best friends, and I'm gonna tell you all this dirt about him, and I'm gonna, we're best friends. But then the second that wasn't like the case, immediately it was the opposite. And she was best friends with him, and there was like
There was
always
no safe
something.
place.
Yeah, no, never any time where it was safe for me. Yeah, like it was always just either my mom being fake because I was the only person, because she had no friends. Her boyfriend had cut her completely, her whole social life completely cut off, right? He isolated her to the point where she didn't even have any family, and she has a huge family. And so I was, when she needed it, the only time she needed it, and the only time I was really useful to her, was when she needed someone to talk to and gossip to, and make herself feel better. And I kind of started realizing that very young, and I noticed that very early. I think that my mom never really, had any sort of like real kind of like connection and emotional love for me unless it was in her benefit. And I think what you're talking about is super important, because when you're in a situation like that, and other situations too. I mean, I was in foster care for a really long time as well, and that was just horrible. But I think when you're in situations like that, it's so easy to get lost in it, and it's so easy to think all of the things that you do, but most of the things that you come to the conclusions of, they're you're only coming to those conclusions because you're in it right now. And when you said about speaking up, it's so important, because when everything came to a head for me in my experience, I literally like, this is so crazy, but I woke up, something happened physical, and it was right when I woke up. I didn't even have pants on, shoes on. I just had my shirt and my pajama shorts, right? And I just ran. I ran as far as I could until I got to my boyfriend's house, who was really an amazing guy, or still is. We're still together. We've been together for like 7 years. But anyway, I ran to his house and told his parents for the first time in my life. I never told anybody. I mean, it was like I just couldn't keep it in anymore. It was like they knew something was wrong. They knew something was wrong. I mean, I came here barefoot, crying my eyes out, and like, bruises and stuff, and they were like, "Whoa, what happened?" And that day is the day that my life changed forever. Okay, like forever. And ever since that day, I have never once ever had to be in a situation like that ever again, because my new family saved me. I mean, they came to me, and they were there for me emotionally and physically, and everything. It was like this whole new life that I lived, and it was only because I literally came there one day and just spoke up, and I said what was going on. I mean, and in my life, I had actually, I'll take that back. I did tell people before, right? Like, there was a couple times where Social Security, or not Social Security, what are they called? CPS, Child Protective Services. They came, right? And it was always, every time somebody from CPS came, it was like the death of me. Like, it was like, both my mother and my father would always drill me. If CPS comes, you don't tell them anything. You don't tell them I hit you. You don't tell them I scream at you. You don't tell them this happened. You don't tell them that. I mean, like at all. Like, it was like I would get beat, like, if I said anything, right? And I can remember 2 times, specifically 2 times, actually 3 times, but 2 times with CPS, who are literally sanctioned members that are supposed to protect you, right? I go to tell them and I'm like, hey, this is what's going on. And they just didn't do anything about it. So in my head, I thought, there is no help. Like, this is just how life is. This is just how it's supposed to be. I can't get out of this. Nobody's going to believe me. Nobody's going to help me, right? But then I met those one people. I met that one group of people, and it changed my life just by speaking up and saying, this is what's happening to me. And I have the best family now. I literally can't even begin to describe to you how amazing my family, my new family, my true family is, because they do. I mean, they did everything for me. I mean, they taught me so much, and they showed me what real love is. I mean, I don't think I never really experienced love like that, like fatherly and motherly love, not like love because they need you, or because they, because they need you,
It's
basically.
selfless. It's selfless.
Selfless.
Yes.
Yeah, selfless love. And it still resonates with me today. I mean, that happened when I was 17 years old. The night I ran out of my parents' house. That was when I was 17 years old, and it just, ever since then, it's been so amazing. And it took me so long. That's another thing. It did take me so long to be able to actually be myself again. I didn't even know who I was when I left. I mean, I had no idea who I was. I mean, it was like, just all that trauma had built up, and it was like I was just in survival mode. It was all day, every day survival mode, right? But then I had this opportunity to come and live with this family and be their daughter, and it was right. It felt right. And even even after all that, it's been like 7 years, 6, 7 years, something like that, and I still think about it to this day, and I can't even begin to think about what my life would be like, what I'd be like right now if I hadn't just said, this is what's happening to me that one time,
Yeah, I agree. So before I get into what you're saying, there's someone else here.
Oh, cool.
She's called Cheeky Joe. She won't be on video because she is still suffering with COVID. She actually has long COVID, but she got COVID again.
Oh, no.
Yeah, but she knows all about abuse, and in her case, it was a police officer who said to her, if you don't go away now, run, literally, like you said before, then it's going to be the end of you.
Yeah.
So she says, and she's, by the way, she's a great mom and a great grandmother. She said, that's sad because mother and daughter should have a bond where they can go to each other for any type of support. I hear so much like your story with moms and children, so sad. And she goes on and she says, yes, trauma does that. Being there a few times takes a long road to find. Here you are. Well, long way. I don't know.
Long road,
but
yeah, I guess.
A long road, yes, that's it, to find out. And I've heard more people talking about the bonus fathers and mothers. So
Yes.
in my case, yes, he says it takes a long time to find out who you are. Actually, when I was younger, they called themselves my foster mom and dad. Because I didn't, yeah, so that's a little bit weird, because you were, of course, in a real foster family, which wasn't fun at all. But I was basically there like every night, and I felt safe over there, just like you did. And you talked about compartmentalizing before, And I think that if you hadn't done so, that, overwhelm, and of course, it's so easy to, because you were in a situation where you weren't safe. Whatever you did, you weren't safe. Either you were seen as a friend from your mom's, which is not something that you want. Your
Not at
children
all.
are your children, not your friends. I mean, that's a
Right.
total no go. And on the other hand, then when she was siding with her boyfriend, she was siding with him. So you never knew what to expect. But the downside, to everything is what you basically see is, apart from that you're not safe, you see that it's pretty normal to be abused. So you got abused, but so did your mom. And a lot of people, they do you know Ramstein, the band Ramstein? They have
Uh,
this.
actually, actually, that sounds super familiar. Was it he? Did he write? Is it a book? He wrote a book.
No, Ramstein is. You may know the song "Du hast." Du
Oh, I
hast, du
love
hast
him.
mich
I love
gesagt.
him. That's where. Yes, I love that song.
Yeah, well, "Du hast" is not about. It's actually, some people think it's about you hate me, but that's not it. It's
No.
about, you have asked me to marry you, and I said no.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that band, what they do is they take all these things which are very uncommon, which are not good, and they talk about it. So they have this song called Das Mauer, the wall, and they say, I'm buying you and I'm building you a house, a very pretty house. It has walls, and then and then they go on. There are windows and walls, but everything is not decorated. Just outside of the house there's a garden of flowers, but when it comes down to it, she's undressed and chained to the floor.
Oh, what?
Yeah. So what they basically say is, I'm keeping everyone away from you. And I know so many people who have been in a situation where, friends, those friends are not good, or I'm going to come with you to the friends. And then family, oh, your family is saying this, that, and the other. And then, family was gone. And then work, I'm going to call your work. And then
Mm-hmm.
next thing was, I'm not feeling safe at work. And, all those kind of things. Or other people who were in a situation where they were like in a tiny village, and that, so everyone knew everyone, and they would
Oh,
know
that's
that
so.
that partner
Yes.
was not okay. But still, they didn't speak up. They didn't say, let's. They didn't warn the partner like, oh, that's a bad person, stay away, run. No, they just told the
Yeah.
person, go down the drain.
Yeah,
And
it's
that's,
terrible.
yeah. So you need those people who stand up for you, and who say, hey, you're safe here. So I work with people locally here as well. And one of the things that I said to one of my coaches recently was, I wish there was someone for me back in the days, especially when it came to work, when I was bullied, who would have understood me and would have sided with me. So
Mm-hmm.
I always recall this one moment that I was, and I know it's nothing compared to you, but I was at a swimming pool, and we were going for what we call the C diploma. So you have to dive in the water,
Oh.
through the ring.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm blind as a bat when I'm not wearing my contact lenses or my glasses. I literally see this much. This is
Yeah.
all.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So back in the day, my parents didn't come to the swimming pool, and I was
Oh.
shy. I was so immensely shy. So when I had done what we needed to do, there was a part two, and I wasn't sure if I had done part one correctly. I knew I
Mm-hmm.
had done it, but I didn't hear my name. I didn't know where to go. Remember, I didn't see anything. But
Yeah.
no one came up to me, not a parent, not a teacher, no one. And being in the position nowadays where I can go with people, whether it's to their employees and set them straight, go to school and say, hey, listen, this is the reason why someone cannot go in the direction that you want them, or at the speed that you want them, or they need some extra support.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to do so, it actually feels good. It's
Oh
kind of
yeah.
healing.
You know,
So
I always tell, me and my boyfriend always talk about that, how it's actually funny when, me and him both, we had very different upbringing. Like I would say almost exactly opposite. Like, he didn't experience like any sort of like physical abuse. He always lived in the same house. He always lived with his mom and dad. It was like he had this family and it was, everything was good. But for him, the problem was emotional and, like spending time with them. Like they never spent any time with him, or they like never really cared much about him. He was the last child. He's the youngest child, right? And so they just didn't really. They I think they were done having kids by then, and they were kind of tired, and they just felt like, oh, you can just, they let him do whatever he wanted. Like he had no rules. He could cuss in the house. But he also had like no food. Like his mom didn't cook. His mom barely comes out of the room. All that. And I mean, his mom is a wonderful woman, like now, but like this is when he was younger. They were going through a lot emotionally, and they were like horribly, horribly depressed and stuff. But but vice versa. I had a lot of physical abuse in my life, and a lot of like, yeah, just like physical abuse during that time period, right? Like when he was that age and versus when I was that age. But my dad was so emotionally like there for me. Like he was my biggest cheerleader. He's always like, "Oh, I love you so much. I'll play with you for hours. I'll play pretend, anything you want to do." Like, and he was always there for me, like emotionally speaking. But yeah, I mean, he did have like a lot of physical problem. Like he had a lot of anger issues that he would take physical things out, and but
so
I
why
think it's
why
huh.
did he leave you one day?
But okay, so how to explain this? My dad was so he was the youngest child of 10 children. My grandma had 10 children, and he was the youngest. And him and my aunt Ray were born from one man, and all the rest were born from another. And my grandma loved my dad's mom more than my dad's dad. My grandma loved my dad's dad more than anything she had ever experienced. The man she was with before was abusive, right? So she got with my dad's dad, and they were just like inseparable, like just the best relationship ever. So beautiful. They loved each other with all their hearts, and they spent all this time together. And then when my dad's dad died, my grandma sort of latched on to my dad, because it was like he was the only boy that she had with him. And my aunt Ray didn't look like, didn't look like my grandpa at all, but my dad did. So she kind of latched onto him, and she kind of, really babied him, and wanted him around all the time. So ever since my dad's dad died, she kept him around. I mean, my dad and my grandma were inseparable. Like no matter where they were, they lived together. They did everything together. I mean, he was a mama's boy times 10. Like he was such a mama's boy. And I mean, when when I got out of foster care, oh my goodness, hold on. My window's open and there's like a siren. But when I got out of foster care, my dad worked tirelessly. Like he sacrificed so much to get me back from foster care. I mean, he was just about the worst drunk that you could ever imagine. He was really addicted to methamphetamine, and he he loved his life that way, like he loved being a drug addict, and he loved being a drunk. It was just something that he'd always done. That was his way. But I was in foster care, and my dad had always loved me. I mean, he would never say this, but I know for a fact that I'm probably like one of his favorite kids, because I'm the only one that he really got to raise. Like all of the other ones, all of my other brothers and sisters got taken away at really young ages, went to go live with their grandmas or their moms or whatever. And so I was the only one he really got to raise. And we were like, this, man, like just so, I mean, anywhere we went, I was always in the front seat, no matter who was in the car with us, you know, like we were always together, and like he was my literally like my biggest cheerleader. He loved me so much, and I loved him so much, and I still do. You know, he's still one of my favorite people on this earth. But you know, he's after a while, after he got me back, everything was so good for so long. He got me back, and then about let's see, about 5-ish years later, when I was 12 years old, so about yeah, so about no, actually, so I got back when I was so 5, 6, 7. So 7 years after he got me back, um, you know, things started to get bad, or I'd say more like 5.5, 6 years after he got me back, things started getting really bad. He started leaving and not coming back for weeks at a time, not answering our calls, and you know, just at that point, he didn't care at all what I did. Like he was just gone. I mean, he cared what I did, but he wasn't around. So it was like he didn't really have any
Wasn't
say.
capable anymore of taking care of you.
Right. Yeah. So he was
Yeah.
not capable at all. I mean, something happened to him emotionally, just struck him down, and he went back to doing methamphetamine again, and he
Yeah.
was just always gone. And it got to the point, and my grandma was like 80 something at the time. And so it was literally me, a little, you know, 11, 10 or 11-year-old in the house with my 80-year-old grandma who could barely walk. And we were just fending for ourselves. And my grandma got gout and ended up getting really, really sick. And I tried so hard to keep her, you know, healthy and to keep her feet
Which
clean
you
and everything.
shouldn't do at that age.
Yeah, well, anyway, but I was like really trying, you know, like I would give
Yep.
her these foot baths every night, and multiple times a day I'd give her these foot baths, and you know, I had to walk to the store to get groceries, and our power would go out and all this stuff. And I remember one night my dad came back, and every time he would come back, so he'd be gone for like 2-3 weeks at a time, and then he'd come back for like 2 nights, sleep the entire time, and then leave again. And I remember he got back, and you know, he was walking past me, and I was going like, what the heck, what are you doing, like I need to talk to you. And then he just walked right past me like he always did, and I ended up, you know, running past him and freaking going into his room and keeping his door open and being like, you can't do this to us anymore, you know. And I was like, you need to like come back and stay back, or you need to do something, because this isn't working, grandma's sick, you know. and and you know, that was a whole thing that happened that night anyway. So I called my aunt the next day, because he literally just, it was so bad. I mean, he had so much rage and so much anger, and was just like, I'd never seen him like this. He was just never like this. But so I called my aunt the next night, and we had no power, and it was cold, freezing cold outside. And my grandma was not doing good. I mean, she looked like she was about to die. So I called my Aunt Ray, and I'm like, hey, you know, grandma's not doing good, right? You need to come get us. And so she came and got us, and took my grandma to the hospital, and they said, you know, this is terrible. Like she can't be doing what she's been doing. She needs somebody to take care of her 24/7 now. So my aunt said, okay, I will, you know. So she next day she comes, and my dad's there, obviously, right now. Like we come back, and it's just me and my Aunt Ray, you know, and because grandma's in the hospital at this point. So she's coming back to get all of our stuff, me and my Aunt Ray. And so we're getting that. We get there and we start packing stuff up. My dad's crashed, but then he wakes up and sees what we're doing and starts freaking out, throwing things, breaking things, saying, what are you doing in here? You can't do this, blah, blah, blah. And so, you know, everybody was crying. It was all horrible. But then he ended up taking me and saying, you can take anything you want, but you can't take her, right? And I kind of was like, what the heck, you know? But then after that, after my Aunt Ray left, she couldn't do anything about it, right? Like she wasn't my guardian, she couldn't do anything. And so my Aunt Ray left with all my grandma's things, and after that, my dad got so bad. Like his mom had always been with him, and she had just been stripped of his care, and I mean stripped of his possession basically, and like taken away from him because he couldn't take care of her. And that just destroyed him, because you know, he always had this thing about that. Like if anything ever happened where he felt like somebody was saying he wasn't capable, it was like the biggest deal to him. Like he couldn't stand it. Like he would never accept any help from anyone. He never admitted that he was going through stuff or had problems. Like, you know, he was just like a real solid kind of person. Don't talk about this, don't talk about that, don't talk about this, don't talk about that, don't talk about anything, right? And so, you know, it just destroyed him. I mean, he stayed in that room after my grandma left for freaking days and days and days and didn't come out for a long, long time. And you know, and I think he got to the point at that point where he was so emotionally destroyed that he couldn't stand to be in that house like alone without distractions. So he ended up moving an entire family. My aunt, well, not my aunt, but like his friends that I've known for my whole life, so they're my aunt. But my aunt and my uncle Brian, they moved in with their 3 kids, and mind you, this is a tiny little trailer, like a not a double wide trailer, but like, you know, it had like 2 rooms and a bathroom and like a living room, and the living room was also the kitchen, like one of those trailers that's like, you know, like a rectangle like that. And so there's, let's see, there's 5, 6, 7 people living in a tiny little 2-bedroom, you know, trailer mobile home, that's what they're called. And it got bad. I mean, it was terrible. It was like a monkey house in there. It was like there was nowhere to like sit down or sleep or do anything. You know, it was just bad. And that's when I started acting out, and I started going and, you know, skipping school and doing stuff like, you know, just bad stuff. Like, not like I was never like that. I never did anything bad. I was like just like this normal kid. And then I just started to skip school, do all this, and then, you know, my dad wasn't paying the rent. He wasn't paying the power. He wasn't paying. We had no water for months at one point, and no power, and it was really cold. And then one day, you know, my dad, and at this point in my life, I had only seen my mom pretty much like a couple of times. Like, I had seen her a lot, but I didn't really remember seeing her a lot because I was pretty young when we were like, you know, when she had sanctioned visits. So, you know, he's go, oh, we're gonna go visit your mom. And we had done this like a couple times where we'd go and drive all the way down to Yakima from Auburn, which is by Seattle. So from Seattle to Central Washington, it's like a 2.5-hour drive, and you have to go through these mountains and stuff. Anyway, so I was like, yeah, I'm excited because I always loved going on road trips with my dad. It was like the best thing. We always had fun, you know, it was great. And I was like so excited because I got to see my mom and I got to see my sister, and I loved going to Yakima because most of my family actually lived in Yakima. They were like both of my brothers, my sister, all of my, you know, aunts and uncles, and you know, just everyone lives there, right? So I was like, yay, I'm really excited. And so I'm going, and I'm like, he's like, all right, cool. So we're going to pack up, you know, a little bit, and we're going to go see her, and we're going to go stay there for like a whole week. I was like, what? Because I was confused too, because I was like, you know, summer had just started, and usually we didn't go during the summer. So I was like, cool. So, you know, we get there, and I only have this tiny little backpack, 2 backpacks actually, tiny little backpacks, kid-sized backpacks full of clothes and stuff and that I wanted to bring. So, you know, he drops me off and he says, all right, I'm going to be right back. I'm going to go and get your brother. I'm going to go pick up your brother, and we're going to go swimming. So I'll be right back, right? And I was like, cool. And so I'm at my mom's house having a blast, right? And she's got horses. You know, her boyfriend's uber rich, so he's got this super nice house. I've never seen a house like this. I mean, it was like not actually that nice of a house. It's like middle class, but I was still like, wow, this is really cool, you know, like, and yeah. And so I was playing with the horses, hanging out with my mom, having a good time. And then I kind of noticed, I was like, what the heck? I looked around and it was dark out, and I was like, wait a second, where's my dad? You know, he said he's gonna be back in an hour. And so I start calling him, and I'm like, Mom, can I use your phone? I need to call him. And I called him, and I called him, and I called him, and I called him. He just didn't answer, you know? And so I sat there they had this little couch, and I just sat on that couch for 2 days straight, falling asleep here and there, just staring out the window, waiting for him to pull in. Because I thought any second he's gonna pull in, but he just never did. And then, like, I didn't hear from him for like 5 years. You know, he was just gone.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah, he was just gone.
I'm going to interrupt you for a sec because I'm going to get Jojo come in. So she's here too, and then I'm going to let you continue.
Hi.
So this is Tiki Joe. That's Rayshana. I know her through Pokemon.
Yes, Pokemon.
Oh gosh, no, no Pokemon. Oh.
So I just want to ask a quick question to Rayshana, and then I
Yeah.
want to know what you were, because you came in with a reason, because I know you're still ill. So by the time that you want to be on the show, then there is something going on in your mind that you want to express.
Yes.
So what did your dad say to you when he came back after 5 years?
Nothing. It was like it didn't even happen actually. So like, you know, he when he left, you know, it's so funny. He left me and then didn't talk to me for I didn't no text, no call, no nothing for 5 years. And I was there for maybe 2, 3 months. And one day, just this random car showed up with all my stuff in it. I was like, "What is going on? Have you talked to my dad? Where's my dad? What's going on? You know, have you seen him? Blah blah blah." And they were like, I don't know. You know, your aunt Sean told me to come and bring this stuff." And so I was like, "What the heck?" I actually believed my dad was dead. 100% I believed he died. So I you know, kind of kept holding out thinking, okay, he's going to, you know, he's going to text me, he's going to call me any day. But then I realized he didn't even know my mom's number. I mean, you know, like it's not like he memorized what my mom's number was. She barely ever had the same number. So I was like, even if he wanted to, he really couldn't text me or call me or do anything really. He would have to show up. And then we moved houses like 2 years later. And so I thought, he's never coming back. I'm never gonna see him again. Like it's just over. You know, he's either dead or I'm never gonna see him again. And then you know, this is crazy, but I come home from school one day. I get off the bus. I start walking to my house, which is like right next to my bus stop. You know, and I look up, and my dad's in the driveway leaning against his van. And I was like, what? I couldn't even process it. I didn't even think it was real. I could not believe he was there and that he was standing in front of me. I was just like, what? And I was so mad. I was so mad, but I mean, I just walked up to him and gave him a hug, and it was like, boom, instantly, all that mad went away. And then we spent like 2 days together, you know, and it was like the best 2 days of my life. And then he left again, and I was mad again. I was really, really, really mad. And I mean, because of that experience, that's what caused me to be a quote unquote bad kid. That was my biggest dilemma, was being a bad kid. I would always cause trouble. I'd get into fights. I had so much anger, like so much anger in my heart, that, you know, causing trouble was like the only way to get that anger out. And that's actually when I realized, if I keep getting into trouble and I keep doing this, my life's going to get worse and worse. Because my mom started putting me in jail. My mom actually started putting me in jail for getting into trouble at school, getting a detention, anything. It was in Washington State. There's this thing called the Youth at Risk program, where you can put your kid in, and they get drug tested. They go to meetings, and it's like, if they do anything wrong at all, you immediately go to juvie. And it, you know, my counselor, the counselor that was assigned to me, literally knew I wasn't supposed to be there. She was like, you know, you have no business being here. You're not even a bad kid. You don't do drugs. You've never done any drugs. You know, like, you've never done that. Only reason why I got accepted to that program is because my mom asked me to buy weed for her at my school, and I got caught with it. So, and then she made me go into the youth at risk because of that. It was her, you know, like, what? Anyway, so, you know, I was in that youth at risk program, so I was going to jail, and I was like, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep going to jail. You know, I'm gonna fail. I did fail that year. I had to get held back 7th grade, and so I didn't want that anymore. I was just like, what do I do? And the only option in my brain at the time, big at the time, because this is not what you should do, but was to cut myself. It was the only way I could get my anger out and kind of like remove myself from any situation where I got too angry. And that was the only thing in my mind that worked at that time, you know. And I think that was my biggest problem, was the anger. I had so much anger, you know.
Yeah, that
Like,
totally makes sense. You were abandoned, you were left out, not taken seriously. But the abandonment, and of course, your dad was your most precious gift, as in he was your treasure. And then all
Yeah.
of a sudden, when you spoke to him, you cannot do this anymore. Then something snapped on his end, and
Oh,
yeah,
I
so
forgot to
that's
say actually the reason. So another thing, the reason why that was so bad for me, I think, is because the day before we left, the day before we left to go to my mom's house, I actually told him, I hate you and I want to go live with my mom.
yeah.
So
It sounds like something broke inside
yeah,
of him.
so I was like, the whole time he was gone, I thought I asked for this. I literally told him that I hate him and I want to go live with my mom. Like that
Well,
was exactly what I said.
you wanted to cause change,
Yeah, that's it. That's the
and
only thing yeah, exactly. I
yeah,
only said that because things were so bad at that point that,
yeah,
that was, and I had never, ever, that was the one time in my entire life that I ever said, I hate you to my dad. It was the only
yeah.
time. It was
Yeah,
literally the
it
only
wasn't
time.
like you hated him. You wanted things to change. So
Hmm.
I'm going to bring on Jojo for a sec.
Yes.
Like I
I'd
said,
love to hear from
she's
her.
not feeling very well. So share with us what brought you on. What's the one thing that stood out for you, or maybe there are several things that stood out for you in this entire story? I mean, there's a lot of things I can say, but I want you first to.
Well, the story that she's been saying is quite emotional, and a lot of it I can relate to in certain ways, obviously, as you know, from my past. But I have had a good relationship. I've been lucky. I must admit, I have had a good relationship with my dad and my mum. Even though they were divorced, my mum lived in Belgium, and obviously I lived in the UK. My dad does. My dad's still alive, luckily. I still have him, but unfortunately, my mum passed away a couple of years ago to
Oh.
cancer. But I had a stepmom, and that wasn't very good at the beginning when because I was 10 when my dad married her, and they had a daughter, which is my half sister, and she was spoiled, got everything she wanted, and I never. I was like the as in England we say, I don't know if you heard the saying in America, I was a black sheep of the family.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was. That's how I perceived myself. I was a black sheep of the family. Um, and it notices, and it does affect you, like, and obviously I can relate as well to you saying you're self-harming because of the anger. Where my daughter, she's now 19 now, but when she was 15, my husband, her dad, he died of COVID,
Mm.
and she had so much anger because she couldn't deal with the fact that this thing come along and took him because she was only 15, and she started self-harming. That was her way to get through the pain that she was dealing with, and eventually she did come out with it herself, which was good
Oh,
because
that's awesome.
because a lot of children, obviously, as you know, you hide it, you just do it and do it and do it and hide and hide and hide eventually till you're actually caught.
Hmm.
And that's the hardest thing as well, because obviously you're doing it, you want someone to see you do it, you want to, but you can't express that you're doing it because you feel like you're a failure if you do, or they're going to hate you and say that they're going to think you're stupid, or why are you doing this to your body, and you get all them thoughts in your head, and things like that, and it's
They
sad
make you
that,
feel small
yeah,
Yeah.
and
because
not having a bond with your mum, that is the most one of the most hardest things a child could go through, is not having a bond with their mum. I couldn't even imagine not talking to my children. I mean, one's 30, one's 27 now, and my youngest is 9. I couldn't, I hear so many stories like yours. Like, my daughters have got friends, like, and their friends are like, I wish I had a mum like yours. You're so lucky in that. And like, with my grandchildren. They're my world. And I hear so many people, mind you, oh yeah, well, she split up. I don't see the grandkids like you. And I'm like, I would fight every tooth and nail to see my grandkids. My daughter was to cut me out the life. I would take her to court. I would do everything to see my grandkids because they're my family. But I
Yeah.
but I know that would never happen because I have such a strong bond with my girls. It's you know what I'm like with them, don't you, Lexi? They're my world. They're my world. I'll do anything for my kids. And to see mothers treat their children, how they could treat their kids. I mean, if you're going to be like that, why have a child? Don't have a child. If you're
Well,
going to
that's
have a
what Ray
child to
Sharma said.
abuse it, yeah. If you're going to have a child to abuse it and bring it up to like in an
Well,
awful life,
unfortunately, getting a
don't.
child, if you can get pregnant easily,
Yeah,
you don't need a certificate.
no,
And that's the
exactly.
bad thing.
And
We
you've
don't.
got people that fight to have children that cannot have kids and would love to be able to have a child to nurture this child. And you've got these ones that have kid after kid and they abuse them, and it's like, why?
Can I say
It's
something
so
about that?
sad.
Sure.
I mean, when I was in foster care, something that really like broke my heart is, the in being in foster care, usually how it goes is you get taken away and you either have no contact or you have visitations with your parent, right? And something that I experienced both sides of the coin, right? I went through a lot of foster parents, but two of them, specifically two of them come to mind. I had this wonderful, wonderful, wonderful family. Oh, so amazing. They were this awesome, super Southern, very Christian kind of, or not Christian, I think they were Catholic, but very religious, very, very wonderful people, loving, caring. I mean, even to this day, it's actually really funny. She still posts pictures of me on her Facebook, even though she only had me for like a year. And,
It's sweet.
she has literally a whole entire wall in her house painted lavender because she used to call me her purple pumpkin.
Aw.
and she was just so full of love and so amazing. And she couldn't have kids. I mean, that's why the whole reason why she went into the foster program. And,
Yeah,
she wanted to keep me so bad. But, and it sucks because, I ended up getting out of foster care for what? I mean, just to have the same terrible
abuse.
stuff
Mm,
happen, like for what? I mean, I could have been stayed with her and had very different life and all the love in the world, but something happened and I got put in different foster care, foster family and like and then I got literally directly after her actually, I got put into a foster care family with this woman. I won't say her name, but let's just say D for easy speaking. But she, D was, Hispanic, and my sisters were Hispanic. So when we all got taken away, all my sisters, there's four of us, so I have three sisters, and I'm the only one that's white. All three of my sisters are Mexican, and we all got put in care with this millionaire family, like billionaire family, literally. And my oldest sister Lacey at the time, every time we got put in foster care, she'd run away if it was a good foster home. Like she'd immediately run away. If she knew that me and my sisters were being cared for, she would immediately run away and go and live with my mom. But they'd always end up finding her, right? But anyway, so she runs away and I'm in this home with my other two sisters and they're, it's like this crazy house. It's like a billionaire family. Anyway, so they say, we want these two, but we don't want her. She's white and we can't pass her off as our own child, right? And so they ended up adopting both my sisters. and, you know, passing me along to the next people. And then I went with Denise. Oh crap, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that, but I went with my next family, which was the really loving people, the ones that really loved me. And then after that, Lacey was back, and which is my oldest sister. And so me and Lacey were in this, you know, house, and this woman was also Hispanic, wanted children that looked like her so she could pass them off as her own. And she had, at the time, she had 8 foster kids. And all of us were starving, like all of us were abused, like, but specifically me, it was like the worst because I was white. She couldn't pass me off as her own. So she hated me. She like literally hated me with her gut, with her whole heart. And so, like, you know, it was just such a bad situation. And that's what I think about when you said that. Like, how can you have kids if you're just, if you don't have, if you're not gonna, you know, love them and take care of them and stuff. And I think there's so many reasons why people have kids, you know, and end up not being good parents. It's like, you know, sometimes you don't even know. Sometimes you can have a kid and you end up just not being able to handle it. And then there's other times where you know, have bad intentions, like that foster family. She had so many of those foster kids because she needed the money. She got the money actually back in the 2000s when I was in foster care. You actually got paid to be a foster parent. Nowadays they don't do that. They subsidize you with like food stamps, which you can't actually spend on like things, but back then they used to just give you money. So most of the foster people, they were in it for the money, right? But then there's, you know, but what you're saying though is, yeah, I think a lot of mothers can think they are going to be a great mom, or they think they can handle it and they think they're going to do great, and then they end up not being very good, right? But I think it's damaging. It's really damaging to not know what you're doing, right? Like, because that's how it was with my mom. She didn't ever think, she thought she was the best mom in the world, and she thought she was so great, and she thought she was the best mom because she always would go in between me being her enemy and then me being her friend. And I think she thought that being the friend made up for being the enemy, you know?
being an enemy, yeah. And this is a
Yeah,
lot
it
of the
sounds
problems. They try to be friends, which they shouldn't be. They should be the parent,
Exactly.
the mother, not a
Yeah,
friend.
yeah,
You're the
but she was
exactly.
child, so
also
they're
cut
supposed
off.
to.
She was cut
Sorry?
off from. She was cut off from other people. So basically, it
Yeah.
sounds like to me she was using you, and then of course pretending that you were a friend was nice for a while until it wasn't,
Yeah.
because then she had to be the mom again.
Yeah,
Um,
just to make you feel good, yeah.
yeah. So I'm going to wrap this up because we've been talking for
Oh
19
yeah, we've
minutes
been talking for
altogether.
so long.
So I am. So I started out with, and then I'm going to give all of you a final word. We talked about moving ahead, about motivation, mindset, and milestones. So we know, and I'm talking to Rayshana for a moment here. You've gone through a lot, but but I also know that you've got your own job now. You are a much stronger person,
Oh
so you've
yeah.
come really strong out of it. You've found that really great family. You are what I would call your bonus mom and dad, and
Yeah.
then you know what I mean, right?
Well, what you
So
said too about what was the 3? Motivation? What was it?
motivation, mindset, and milestones.
Oh
So, in
right.
order to
Okay.
move ahead one step at a time, it's important that you know why you do it. So, the motivation, mindset, that you're capable of doing it. So, realizing I am worth it, I am good enough. And the milestones, that you want to go somewhere. So, where is it that you would like to go? What would you tell other people?
Oh, definitely that it you know, it's always possible. Like no matter what it is, it's always possible. I mean, you know, it everybody growing up in my family, everybody always told me, you're going to be an addict. Don't try drugs. Don't try alcohol. You're going to be an addict. You're going to be, you know, drug addicted. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. You know, you're 10 times more likely to be this. You're 10 times more likely to be that. You will be that, right? And I always just kind of thought about that, and you know, like a lot of people say that if your mom is in an abusive relationship, you will be in abusive relationships when you grow up, because you that's what you look for as in a partner, right? And I actually realized that it is so not that way. I mean, I got so incredibly lucky with my soulmate. I mean, we've been together since we were 17, and he treats me better than anyone has ever treated me. I mean, he's my biggest fan. He's my best friend. We don't even have to talk sometimes. We can just look at each other and know what we're saying. And we spend 24/7 together, and we never, like, it's just always been so good. And I always thought I never could have that. But I think having the mindset that you could have that, and having the motivation to keep that, good things in your life, and knowing that it's possible, it's really important,
Well, despite everything that has happened, you have always had this very special relationship with your father. So you know what it's like to be nurtured and to be held, to be seen.
Very true.
Of course, due to circumstances that stopped happening. But you're still very fond of your dad. So
Very fond. Love him so
yeah,
much.
and I think that probably has made a lot of difference for you. So
That is very true. I don't
yeah,
really think about that all that much, but that is probably very true. I mean, that's,
yeah.
yeah. My
And
boyfriend is very much like my dad.
the other side is because you've seen what has happened, what happens when you drink and all that stuff, and you abuse other people. You probably have decided at some point this is never going to happen on my end.
Oh yeah, literally. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
when you're surrounded by it, everybody tells you that that's what you're destined for, or that's what you're gonna be when you grow up, and that's so not true. Like, not
Well,
at
it
all.
can.
Like,
It
I
can.
mean,
I
no,
mean,
it
if you
can
look
be.
at your
I mean,
family,
oh
then
yeah, no, it definitely can be. I mean, it is a statistic for a reason, but I think that it doesn't have to be.
no, that's what I mean. One can break the cycle. And then,
Right.
of course, the trick is to keep breaking the cycle because you
Right.
can break it from one generation, but somehow the next generation might be prone to it.
Yeah.
So it's important to talk about it and be open about it. And you being here and sharing this with all of us. So we don't know who's going to watch this, but we do know that whoever is going to watch this and who this is meant for is going to remember your story and say, hey, she has been through hell and back. Was Astrid foster parent, and of course with what happened with your mom, but she came out of it stronger, and she has a loving family now and a loving boyfriend, and she still adores her dad.
I love my dad. Yes,
So
and I think, yeah, I hope that's the whole reason why I wanted to come on here and talk, because I really felt like, I really appreciate what you're doing, and I wanted to be a part of it for sure.
well, I hope you come on more often. So
I will. I
it was a
definitely
delight to have
will.
you here. So, and now to Cheeky Joe. Is there something before I refer to the model? Is there something else you want to say first?
I just want to say, like, I'm happy that you've actually started to think about yourself, your life, for what you've been through and everything, because it is hard. It's not easy because I was in an abusive relationship and I never ever thought that I would ever find anyone that I could trust or even think about being with. And I did. I found my soulmate. I found my best mate. I found the love of my
Oh.
life. But unfortunately, COVID took him.
Mm.
And, but I had amazing 17 years with him. And I would never change that for anything. It taught
Mhm.
me that I can be loved, I can be respected, and I do have a good natured heart. I am a kind hearted person. I wouldn't hurt a fly, I
Right.
and it's what I want for my children, the best for my children, because luckily my youngest wasn't around, and nor my others. They wasn't around when I was in an abusive relationship, so which is a good thing because they never
Mhm.
got to see it. Unfortunately, I did lose my little boy through it, But
Oh,
with my other three, I've always told them to be happy, respect people, and you'll get along in life. And my daughter that's got the children, her and her partner have been together, it'll be 9 years this year, and they're happy
oh,
together, they're good together, two amazing children,
that's so good.
and it's
And
how
when
you sort of, with your children, because you want your kids not to go through what you went through. You want the best for your children. You
yeah, that's
try
true.
and do your best, it's,
Normally that's what you want, but we have
yeah,
established not everyone is capable of it. And what Rishana said about breaking the cycle,
yeah,
you basically broke the cycle too, because your mom was
mm,
drinking, and at some point you said either you stop drinking or you don't see your grandchildren.
yeah, that's right. And she stops, yeah,
So if
yeah,
you
That's
had
good.
done so, if you hadn't spoken up, then, but each of you also have had help from someone else. I mean, Joe, you of course had a police officer, and you didn't realize that you could have
yeah,
the life that you've had now.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Rayshana, you
mm,
of course you got your boyfriend. You just ran off, and you were like, and there it was. You were welcomed, and it's actually kind of sad that before that time you already were in a foster family with a very sweet person,
mm,
who who couldn't keep you. And
Mm-hmm.
why? Because you didn't have enough money. That's sad. That's really sad. And
Well,
like
not
what?
because she didn't have enough money, because
Oh,
it was because of the foster system, the way the foster system worked at the time. But yeah, but what you're saying is still true, right?
yeah, and that's why I say it's so sad. And I've my mom, she comes from Indonesia, so Dutch Indonesia. So my dad is the big guy, 6'6", 2 meters
Oh
tall.
wow.
And my mom is the short one, when they were still alive. So she, a lot of Dutch and French and Portuguese people, so say fair skinned people, would come over to Indonesia. And what you said with Hispanic people, you were white, you were fair skinned,
Yes.
so you were not accepted. And in Indonesia, it was the other way around. Um, so basically, my mom wasn't part of one and she wasn't part of the other. So she was too white, too fair skinned to be someone from
Oh
Indonesia.
no.
And she was too dark to be seen as someone who could be Dutch. So back then in the days, the men who would come over to the island, they would have, well, they call it, I don't know how to describe it, but sort of like concubines, extra women on the side.
Mm-hmm.
And so at some point they would go home again, so back to Europe. And if the kid was too dark, they wouldn't, of course, take the kid.
Mm-hmm.
So then you get a little bit. So just like the Hispanic family, they would fit in or they would not fit in. And so my mom, she actually at some point, my dad and my mom wanted to migrate to Australia. So the Dutch Indonesian people from the Dutch colony had to make a choice whether to become Indonesian or go to Holland. And of course, my mom had never been in Holland. Um, so then they went to New Guinea, and then again that same thing happened. And she wanted to go to Australia, and then they said you were too dark. And she wasn't much darker than I was. I think she's probably the same tan as most Hispanic people. No, even
Mm-hmm.
lighter probably. So that's it's so weird to actually hear that again. That I'm like, oh my god, in this day and age, is that even
Right. It's
possible?
crazy. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
it's really crazy. So um, what is your milestone, Ray Shauna? Where do you want to go from here?
Well, that's a good question. I think, I think right now I'm in a little bit of a tough spot just because I hit my milestones and I'm kind of having a hard time trying to know what I want to do. I mean, I definitely know I want to go back to school. I never finished high school. I never went to college. But, my big milestones were get a stable place to live, a house, that I can call my own. Uh, be financially stable enough to be able to do, things like vacations. In my entire life, I had never taken a vacation before until literally this last, what was it? I think it was February. Yeah, was it February? I think it was in February or March. This last February and March, I finally went, for the first time in my life ever, went on a vacation, like an actual vacation. I went on a cruise, and it was unlike anything I had ever seen. I was so happy about that. And, and then just things like, I have my family, and that's all I really wanted, and to be financially stable, to have a home, and, just, yeah, those are my main milestones. So yeah, I think right now I'm just kind of in a process of trying to figure out what I want to do, what my milestones are. I think one of my biggest milestones right now is definitely going back to school and seeing what I can do, because I was not definitely, I'm extremely intelligent. I am really extremely intelligent, but not in the way that I'm very good at taking tests, and I'm not very good at, like, on the books, right? Like, but I can learn really fast and all this stuff. And thanks to my boyfriend, actually, I know I have now the confidence and the ability to understand that I could probably do college, actually. Like, I never thought that was even going to be a thing. My family never even talked about it. It wasn't something like, somebody would tell me at high school, oh, what college are you going to apply to? I was like, what college? What? When I'm done, I'm done, like. But now, my boyfriend, he told me, oh, you got to do it. You can, you can do it. And so I think that's what I'm going to focus on right now. My milestone is definitely.
I agree with him.
I'm sure
From
you'll
what I've
achieve it.
seen and heard, you
Yeah.
are definitely a
You'll
very
do. I
smart.
think you'll do very well. I think you're
Thank
going to do
you.
very well.
Yeah.
Thank you,
And
guys.
when you have to focus on actually having running water and food on the
Right.
table, and actually having a home without smashed windows,
Actually, that is such a really good point. I think a lot of people nowadays, I think, don't really understand the difference between being in survival mode and actually, living and having, your life set up and ready to go. And I think it's easy for a lot of people who live in survival mode for so long to not know what to do when they finally get to a point where they're not in survival mode. It's almost like you kind of feel like lost, like you're not doing anything, or like it's like you feel like you're lazy, kind of, almost like you're not, what's going on? Like, I'm not doing anything. Like, I don't have to, like, go and rush to the food bank at 7 o'clock to get food. I don't have to, jimmy rig a extension cord to get power from the neighbor. Like, I don't have to do all this mini tiny little stuff all day long just to survive. And now I'm just here, like, and I have food and I have water. I have things. For the first time in my life, I actually have my own phone. Like, I got my own phone recently, not super recently, but like, within the last like 5 years. And, I started getting a TV, and now I have internet. What? I didn't even know that was like a thing I could do, but I guess, yeah, I have Wi-Fi in my house now.
That's so amazing. That's so amazing. And I know about a lot of people, and it's kind of funny because I was talking about productivity this month. But a lot of people, when they've set a big goal and then they've achieved it, and all of a sudden it's like, but what now?
Yeah,
Because
yeah, that's exactly how it
what's
is.
beyond it? They never have been able to actually go beyond that. So when they've done that big thing and all the adrenaline is gone, it's like,
Yeah,
yeah,
you kind of freeze.
But I would say, start get pen and paper, start drawing, start writing down words.
Oh, that is what I draw. I do draw, and I love drawing.
Yeah, and just draw the things that you would like in your future. What would make you happy. So I'm going to switch to Joe for a sec. So
Awesome.
Joe,
Yeah.
As in moving ahead, mindset, motivation, milestones. You have had a lot to go through as well. That much we know. And your mindset, of course, you had to go from realizing, hey, I'm worthless to, hey, but I'm worth something, which, of course, was your late hubby. It was one of the most beautiful things that happened to you. Um, so one of your motivations, I know for certain, are your kids and your grandkids. You live for
Oh,
them, and she's amazing. So
Mm.
Chiki Joe and I, we've actually met up in, yes, Chicago. So
Yeah.
that's
she lives
awesome.
in the UK, and we met up in Chicago for the first time. So that was
Yeah.
kind but what would your milestone be? Because, I think that when we went to Chicago for the first time, that was also your first, that you
Yeah.
actually traveled by plane.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was that was a huge milestone on my
Oh
own as
yeah.
well. It was like, oh my God, like 8 hour flight on my own. I was like, oh my God, I'm not gonna get on this plane. I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna be able to
I
do this.
know.
Like, oh my
And the
Dealing
God,
with
I was
airport
anxiety. She was
so
dealing with anxiety, right?
yeah,
and the
yeah,
airports
mega
are terrible.
anxiety.
Yeah,
Oh,
you
I
get mixed
hated
up
it
on
when I
it.
got there. Yeah, they took me in the interrogation room
Oh my God,
because I was
what?
because I'd
Yeah,
literally
because
got my passport the day before, and obviously I've never
Oh,
flown, and I was on my own because I was meant to go with Lexi the day before, but my passport came literally an hour before the flight, so I had to cancel mine for the next day. And they're asking me all these questions like, "Are you married? Do you have children? Blah blah blah, this and that." And I'm answering, and
what?
they went, "Yeah." And the CPD, they come and took me, and they took me. I was sitting there thinking, oh my God, they're going to send me back home. Or what if somebody's put drugs in my bag? Or, oh my God, what's
I
happening?
was on the other. No, you're
Yeah.
okay. So I was calling her on the phone, and I was getting on the L
She's
train
going,
next to
yeah,
go to
you're
her.
fine, you'll be okay. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not. But
I
I was,
know.
because they obviously, whatever I told them, they checked it out and it was all true. So,
Obviously.
and
Yeah, but
obviously, I
because
suppose they're doing their job, which I can
But you
understand
still
because you get
can't,
people.
you still can't stop from being terrified, like that something is
No,
gonna
no,
happen.
I was literally terrified. But I mean, one of my milestones is to get my health back on track because
yeah, that's a
I
good
had
one.
an accident last year and it caused me so many problems with my body and obviously suffering with long COVID. But that's one of my milestones. I really need to get my health back on track to get back to normality again, start feeling myself again. Where it's at the moment, I've not been feeling myself at all. I've been so exhausted, so tired with this long COVID. And but yeah, one of my milestones is to get myself back on track, healthy, walking again, exercising, and going on our trips to Chicago and our favourite place. And
Your
that's my
CPD fan.
milestone too. Yeah.
I don't know.
So
Do you know CPD, Chicago
Chicago
PD,
PD,
Chicago Fire?
Oh
one
yeah.
Chicago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, oh, that's
But yeah, so
yeah.
that's my milestones to get
That's
myself
those are good
motivated,
ones.
healthy.
Yeah, health is so
Back on
important.
track.
I know everything about it. So, Rayshana, you don't know this, but you see the crutch there, which the pinup is holding. So, um, I've been walking with crutches since 2014,
Oh
and
wow.
then I think about a year ago or 2 years ago, I didn't need them anymore. And then after a year and a half last summer, I needed them again. And
Oh.
fortunately, I don't need them anymore, but they're
Oh.
still in my car. But if I can walk like a mile or 2 miles, a little bit, I usually it's
2 o'clock
like
in the morning,
I
three
can, I
o'clock in the
can
morning.
yeah. For Pokemons, I go for the Pokestops, at night outside. And
She
just
video calls me, and it's like 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, it's dark. Where are you? Oh, just going for a walk, catching Pokemon. I'm like, seriously, this time in
Well,
the morning?
probably it's probably better though where you live, right? I mean,
yeah,
like, is it like a small town that you live in, or
no,
Oh.
Well, no, that's not true. I live near a big city, and these are more the outskirts of the big city.
Mm.
So it's pretty quiet, and there where I was walking was actually a lot of nature and
Oh,
no
that's awesome.
lights. So
Oh, wow.
I'm not that scared. When I was 21, there was this huge guy who was trying to pull me into the bushes, and I just came from the gym back then, and I screamed and I yelled and I moved, and then he said, "Please stop screaming," and I was like, "No," and then he went
What?
off. Yeah,
That's
and then he went off.
crazy.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
crazy.
I mean, I would never even think. I mean, like anytime that I have to go outside in LA, I'm in LA right now. Anytime that I have to go outside, I actually have in my suitcase, I actually have a pair of my boyfriend's sweats and my boyfriend's jacket to look like
Yeah.
a man,
Yeah,
just to walk around.
I was actually wearing those. So back in the days, we had those fitness pants, which were for the people who were doing the Rave the Cities. So
Mhm.
those were more boyish, like, with the fluorescent colors or
Oh,
tire tracks
wow.
on them. And I would have this denim jacket, big one with the furry coat. But I walked underneath the lanterns, and I only went to the
Uh,
bus stop, which was nearby. And he tried to take advantage, so it didn't work. But ever since I've got eyes in the back of my head,
right.
and I do close the car doors always as if I drive. So that's the one
Yeah,
thing. But I'm
that's
not.
important.
I'm not scared. I can go on my bike and then ride back like 1 o'clock at night,
Hmm.
and then it's really dark. I have to go. So we have these bicycle trails surrounded by bushes, but close is the road though. So I do go on high speed when I can.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Well,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be walking around London that time of night.
Yeah.
No.
So even though my milestone could be to walk better than I do, so my first milestone was actually to be able to stand on 2 feet again, to be able to stand on 2 feet and actually walk a little bit without my crutches. So traveling has become easier because traveling with crutches in a suitcase, then you get stuck at the airport when you're on your own. I got
Hmm.
stuck literally,
Oh,
so I had to
wow.
scream for help
Oh,
to lift
wow.
me there. Um, but for me, and then I skip a little bit forward. So when you talk about the big dream that I have, is I want to create a ripple effect that people actually learn to speak up and to communicate better, especially when we're talking about business owners, men who do not know how to communicate with their partners, their children, their employees. If something could change, in that area. But what I would like to happen this year is I really want to get some trips done. So either going to Chicago, Florida, wherever where it's nice weather, because I don't want to be in the cold. um,
Yeah.
where people come over for like a week or maybe 5 days. We stay in the same hotel, and then I take them out places, go sightseeing, and they get assignments, and then I get to talk to them, preferably with another coach, and literally record the things that they say and then change it so that their live song um, actually, there's a bridge, and you can see the change where they're going towards. So with pictures from what was in the past up to what it's going to be in the future, and
Oh, that's so
follow up
cool.
on that. Yeah, so that would be really nice. So I want people to come over to Europe just before Christmas, and then see all the lovely places, including the UK. And otherwise, it would be nice to actually take them to some place in the US. Yeah. So those are the things that I'm working towards. But for now, um, one step at a time. And in this case, it's doing this every week. So I realized that this is probably the fourth time that I've done Friday Night Live. So I did it actually for 9 months until we went to Chicago the first time, and then it stopped. And now I said, okay, I'm just going to do it again, be consistent. So Friday Night Live with Lady Lexi. So and you're a part of it. So that's cool.
Yes.
Yeah. So for those people who are watching, you know, what can I say? It's been a very intense recording today. It's been an intense live. We've, we are talking to people here, especially Rayshana and Jojo. They've gone through hell and back, and both of them came out stronger and more determined than ever. And if you can pick up on something, then please let it be that, like Rayshana said, you can break this cycle. And also, like Chiki Joe showing, she's a loving mom, she's a loving grandma. It can change. Just don't give up. If you speak up, you speak out, there will be that one person who will see you for who you are and will take you by the hand and help you change life. Anything,
Yes.
final words you want to add to this, either of you?
I would like to say, I would like to say thank you so much for having me. And, I mean, I think it's, it feels good. It feels really good to talk to people and feel accepted about, your story. And I think that's one of the most important parts about healing and growing is, communication and, talking and sharing. Because I mean, you think about it so much and you kind of run through your head and you make up all of these ideas and you try to understand it, but talking out loud and saying, having somebody, excuse me, having somebody there to hear you is so important because I think a lot of people aren't actually heard, and that's one of the best feelings in the world, just to be heard.
I agree. That's why I love the group so much that we are part of. So,
Yes.
yeah. So, Joe, any last thing you want
Yeah,
to
I
say?
just want to say well done to Rashona. How do you say your name?
Yeah, no, you did great. Yeah, that's Rayshana, that's how you
Rashona.
say it.
Like for speaking out, as you said, it is good because it took me years. And obviously with Lexi, I started doing my first, when she got me on my first video, I never thought I would speak the way I would. And I think it is good to speak out because it does help you release that tension that you've got so much built up in you
Oh
and when you
yeah.
hold it in, it isn't good for your body, it isn't good for your mind. So speaking up when you talk, it does give you that big bit of a relief after because you're like, wow, did I really come out with that? Wow, that feels so good to talk about that, And obviously, if you're out there and you need to, just reach out to Lady Lexi,
Mhm.
and if you want to speak, then I'm sure she'll have you on the show and just share your stories because the more we share, all it takes is just for one person, even if it saves one person,
Mhm.
from trauma
It's worth
or
it.
what they're going through to help them deal with it, It's just, we're always there and there's always help somewhere along the line. Just don't be afraid, reach out because you'll
Mhm.
find in the end by reaching out, it will help you a hell of a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We want to create that ripple effect, and we do it all by speaking up and speaking out.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you, ladies. Hang on for a sec.